The time has come. The time, right now, it's here. Right now, we're gonna be making a very, very delicious, very well-balanced loaf of bread. We're making a rustic sourdough bread, which means we're gonna be using our sourdough pre-ferment to build our leaven, to use that leaven, and put it into our final dough mix. It's a nice combination of flour, some water, and some salt, and with a little bit of time, you can have really delicious bread coming out of your oven. Grab our levain. It's very active right now. Wonderful. I have all of the ingredients here in front of me that I need to make this delicious rustic sourdough loaf. So the specific leaven that I've built today is 50 grams of our sourdough starter, 150 grams of bread flour, 50 grams of whole wheat flour, and 175 grams of warm water, okay? I mix that up and I let it sit at room temperature for about 4 hours, okay? Once that process is complete, once this pre-fermented mixture is bubbly and ready to go, it's time to use it in our final dough mix. Although the total water amount in the recipe is 720 grams, I'm only gonna start with 600 grams when I combine the water with my flour, and that gives the flour and that gluten protein kind of the space and time it needs to really develop properly. So again, our water, it's warm, it's not hot, it's definitely not cold. We're gonna zero out our scale here, and then the next part of this process is we're gonna add our leaven. 200 grams, it's nice and strong. Oh yeah. All right, just like that into the bowl. I'm going to dissolve this into the water, and that's gonna help our leavening sourdough starter really be evenly distributed in our final dough mixture, all right? We are now gonna go back onto the scale, and we're gonna add our flours. I need 50 grams of rye flour. We now need 700 grams of bread flour. Ooh. We now need 150 grams of all-purpose flour. Zeroing out our scale. And last but not least, 100 grams of whole wheat flour. Rounding things out with our beautiful, nutritious whole grain. It's gonna bring flavor to the table, and it's gonna help, along with the rye flour, kind of kickstart this fermentation that we need to go through over the next 4 hours. My mixing technique here, it's the same as usual when it comes to making these very simple rustic loaves. Starting in the middle and just using my hand to squeeze a little bit gently and really get the water and flour to incorporate, all right? My objective at this point is for no dry flour to be left. You're gonna start to see that your dough is becoming sticky. It does feel in the beginning a lot drier than you might expect, but as you squeeze, as you develop, you see less and less flour in the bowl. But at this moment, it's just been a couple of minutes. You can see how well my dough's actually coming together, but I wanna make sure I get all of those remnants on the bottom of the bowl incorporated into the dough. And now we're towards the end. We're gonna use both hands just to give it a quick finish and make sure we do not have much dry flour left. And there we are. The bowl, it's relatively clean of dry flour. There's a little bit of dough still sticking to it, but this is absolutely phenomenal. It smells incredible. We still have 120 grams of water left to incorporate into the dough, and we wanna do that slowly. Let's give this gluten a chance to form for about 5 minutes, and then we'll add more water and squeeze it in to slowly hydrate our dough. So I'm going to add the rest of the water in roughly 50-gram increments. All right, so I'm gonna go straight here into the dough. The whole purpose of waiting those 5 minutes is so that we can start to get some strength and stability. Now, the first thing that you're gonna start to notice is the water just kind of pooling up at the bottom of our bowl. You're gonna notice that it's kind of slimy on the outside of our dough. The key to doing this is just have a little patience. Use both hands and just slowly squeeze into the dough. All right, this is feeling great. Our bowl, relatively dry. There's no water in it. Our dough, while sticky, it's now a lot more hydrated. Now that we have incorporated that 50 grams of water, we're gonna let our dough rest briefly again. So 50 more grams of water. All right, I feel very good about this. Not very streaky in our bowl anymore. All right, we've got a nice, beautiful dough that doesn't really have that water sheen on it. We're gonna transfer this dough into a different bowl with a little bit of oil so that it doesn't stick to that bowl, and we're gonna wait an hour. So we wanna cover it with a kitchen towel. We just don't want any draft really getting over to it so that it dries out. All right, so we're gonna get our scale, and we are going to be adding 25 grams of kosher salt. Salt is what gives our bread that additional bit of flavor. We need 20 more grams of water. All right, so same technique here, one more time. So it's just a few minutes here, and there we have it, all right? Now we are going to cover our dough, and we're going to wait 30 minutes before we perform a gentle stretch on the dough to stretch out and strengthen that gluten network. We've now allowed our gluten to relax, and we're gonna do something that's known as a stretch and fold. All we're going to do here is simply reinforce and strengthen our dough by stretching it out and folding it into the middle. So I'm just going to grab into the dough like that. All right, as you can see, it's already getting strong. And I'm just going to turn the bowl, grab it from all sides, all right, into the middle. All right, again, we're just helping to strengthen our dough by stretching it out. After I complete the stretches on all sides, I typically like to go under it and flip it over. We're gonna cover our dough back up, and we are going to let it continue to ferment for 3 to 4 more hours. All we have left to do is let fermentation continue to happen, shape our dough, proof it, and bake it. We are looking for a few things. We're looking for a nice smooth surface that we can see here in the dough. Some bubbles are great as well. See this big bubble there? It's a nice indication that fermentation is taking place. We're simply going to flour our dough and the work surface and turn it out. All right, so our dough is looking great. I wanna make 2 loaves of bread out of this. We're gonna shape one into a round ball or a boule shape, and we're gonna shape the other using a tension roll so that it becomes an oval shape, because we're gonna bake that one in our loaf tin. So I'm gonna try to divide it in half as evenly as I can with my bench knife, going straight down. And typically with this one, I like to start by pulling at the sides and folding those into the middle. And what that does is it creates 4 corners, and I will take those 4 corners and do the same thing. Pulling at the corners, going into the middle, and I'll do it over and over again until I start to feel a little bit of tension, which means, I'm really sealing that dough up. We've got a nice, sturdy, stable amount of tension here, and all I'm gonna do is just flip it over and use my fingers. All right, I'm gonna round it and just tuck in to create as much tension as possible. And we're gonna set this to the side, hit the work surface one more time, and now we're going to shape our loaf tin loaf. Start off with a triangular form here, and you wanna start at the tip very quickly, come in very quickly again, and push out to create some initial tension. Do it one more time. So I've got a nice cylinder shape here. I've got a nice seam on the bottom, and this dough is ready to go into our loaf tin. I've got my proofing basket, my loaf tin. For my loaf tin, I need a little bit of neutral oil. This helps it not stick to your loaf tin. Even if it's a non-stick, I like to be safe. And it also adds a little bit of crispiness to your sandwich loaf after you take it out from the bake. All right, we're gonna take our sandwich loaf that's shaped here. It's very nice. All right, what I like to do is press it down. With our round loaf here in the basket, I'm actually also going to keep the steam down. Still need to let these guys proof for 30 minutes at room temperature. I'm gonna actually wrap them with a plastic bag to prevent any draft from drying out our dough. I'm gonna be proofing these at an ambient temperature for 30 minutes, and then they're gonna go into the fridge for a cold fermentation for 12 hours. So I've got some really amazing dough that I've had shaped. I've had it proofing in my fridge for 12 hours already, and it's time to get them into the oven. I'm just gonna rip into it like it's Christmas, because there's no other way. All right, we've got our loaf tin here. We're gonna give this a quick score before it goes into the oven. To score this loaf, it's very simple. I prefer to use a serrated knife. You can use a razor blade or what have you, and you just want to gently go down the middle just like that, all right? Nothing complicated, just a nice line, just like that. And we're gonna pop this in the oven in a second, but first, I'm gonna show you how to load your sourdough into our cast iron. In the oven, I have a preheated cast iron combo cooker. You can also use a pizza stone or a Dutch oven. I've got the oven at 500 degrees. Very important to have your oven extremely hot. It's been in there for about 45 minutes. I'm gonna open up the oven here. All right. Before I open the lid and release heat and steam from our combo cooker, I'm going to flip the dough out onto the parchment paper. We'll lift it up. All right, there it is, and we will cover it again and put it straight back into the oven. Whew. I almost didn't make it. Hello, other loaf. Our loaves need to bake for a total of about 40 minutes, all right? First thing we need to do is lower the temperature of our oven to about 450 degrees. It has been about 20 minutes. Our loaves have been in the oven. Let's see what's going on in there. Oh, yes. Our loaf tin is looking phenomenal, all right? And we'll get to that in a second. What we're gonna do is release the steam and see how our loaf is looking mid-bake. Oh, mamma mia. Our loaves look absolutely incredible. As you can see, the natural scored opening here is wonderful. You can see some steam coming out, and our loaf tin has risen nice and high. We'll talk more about that once the bake is complete, but for now, we will bake them for about 20 more minutes so that that crust can solidify. Ooh. Very nice. Very nice. It's very important to cool your bread so that the air can circulate around it and your crust can solidify properly. So we're going to actually just remove it here. And one of the things you can do to tell if your bread is ready is you can kind of give it a tap on the bottom, and you hear that hollow sound, and that is just kind of that telltale sign that it is ready. It is absolutely perfect. Same thing with our loaf, our tin loaf. We're gonna let our bread cool for about 15 minutes or so. Ooh, very nice. Maybe hit them with that. Oh, yeah. Absolutely beautiful. We want it to be nice and crunchy. You can literally hear the crunch. Here on the tin loaf, we have a nice, beautiful crackling crust. Oh, man. Oh, I always talk about using my hands to mix my dough and make my dough and shape my dough. I also see value in just ripping into our bread, breaking bread. It's just one of the best feelings ever. So here we go. Sweet, tangy, nutty, light, fragrant aromas from the different flours that we've used. It's beautiful. You see the nice caverns, the soft, pillowy interior. My favorite part of the bread is this top part. All right, let's see it melt. Look at that. And we're gonna add a little bit of flaked sea salt. I love using sea salt at this specific moment. All right, we're just gonna grab a little bit of it. I'm gonna flake it right on top. We about to get some of our fresh rosemary on here too. That's just what it's gonna be. Just a little sprig of that. Oh, look at that. This is where it is. No, y'all ain't even ready for this. The sea salt and the butter are just popping. The bread is the perfect amount of tangy and sour. It's not too acidic, but you definitely can taste that natural fermentation. This is literally what I live for. This is why I am alive. Now that I've enjoyed some of that really delicious rustic loaf, let me show you the inside of our sandwich loaf. Oh, there's a little steam action there. You know what I love about a sandwich loaf that's like this is it's very uniform here on the inside. And because it's uniform and it's soft, we can put our toppings on it and it won't fall out. We can put our cheese, our butter, our peanut butter, our jelly, whatever it is we're gonna use this sandwich loaf for. I'm absolutely thrilled with this. I can't wait to make a grilled cheese sandwich. In this chapter today, we've gone from that mix, fermentation, stretching and folding it, shaping it, proofing it, and baking it. We've gone through this process. It's been so much fun. And seeing our end result like this just brings a tear to my eye. It's always worth it when you make bread. With just a few ingredients and just a few tools, you will be making really amazing bread as well.